Gonna start talking since people can kind of roll in whenever they want, and they'll just miss me blabbing the sort of housekeeping business up top. But hello and welcome, everybody. We're so happy to see you. My name is Amelia Bono. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the co-founder and executive director of Shout Your Abortion. SYA is a nationwide organization working to normalize abortion and elevate paths to access regardless of legality. We make resources, campaigns, and media intended to arm existing activists, create new ones, and foster collective participation in abortion access all over the country. It's funny, as I read that, I think about the fact that it doesn't necessarily feel reflective of our current scope of work because we are absolutely an international organization at this point. And that's, I think, today is a great representation of that. We are so excited to talk to Mar and Lara today, two activists in different corners of the world, well, currently in the same one from different corners of the world, who we've worked with in varying capacities. Um, and so, yeah, a couple housekeeping things up top. Audience members will be off camera and muted for security reasons, but you will be able to ask questions in the chat throughout the session. Our speakers are going to be talking for, I don't know, 45 minutes, maybe 30, 45 minutes. And then we will start sort of bringing in some questions from the chat. And we will also have live Spanish translation available, which you can find by going to the bottom of the navigation bar of Zoom, and there's a globe that you can click to listen to in Spanish. So shout out to our lovely Spanish live translators for being here. And yes, welcome. Welcome all to SYA's Abortion Academy, a monthly webinar series featuring experts from across the abortion access landscape. We hope that these sessions provide a deeper dive into more nuanced topics and ultimately give you fresh tools and perspectives to take back into your communities. And today's session is the very first in a brand new series we're calling Study Abroad, which will take place every other month and feature conversations between activists around the world. In this series, we hope to gain perspective on abortion access and activism as it's taking place in different parts of the world. And this idea really came out of conversations that SYA's Erin was having with Anne Rumberger, an amazing baddie from Chicago for abortion rights, who had the initial idea of having longer talks with international activists. And we'll be talking to Anne in our May Study Abroad series. And we also want to thank our promotional partners, which are Chicago for Abortion Rights, NYC for Abortion Rights, Lux Magazine, and again, huge shout out to Anne for really kind of helping this idea come together. And we're super excited to talk to Lara and Mar today. This is the first time I've met Mar, but Mar's art is incredible, and the whole SYA team is absolutely obsessed with like every email we receive from Mar. There's just like it's like, oh no, this is the cutest deck I've ever seen. This is the best illustration. And Lara is someone who came into SYA's life in a very chill time known as summer of 2023, I believe, the Dobbs decision summer, and was our favorite, the best intern that could have ever. Uh-oh, you're breaking up a little bit, Lara. Lara is in a basement and is figuring stuff out. This is just part of the way of how it goes. We're just working with what we have and we'll make it work. I think I said the wrong year. I think that Lara was correcting my not knowing what year the Dobbs decision occurred, even though I care a lot about that and was definitely there. Anyway, Lara has been involved with SYA in a range of ways and has really just kind of become involved in, like, I feel like every time I talk to someone, they're like, oh yeah, Lara's doing this and that. Lara's working with groups truly all over the world, a ton of groups in the States. And we love and appreciate these two and are excited to kind of facilitate a convo between them about what they do, why they do it, how it feels, what's going on. And yeah, so official bio style. Mariana Lorenzo, aka Maremoto, is a textile designer and illustrator based in Mexico City. Her art passionately advocates for women's rights, exploring themes of self-esteem, feminism, and LGBTQ advocacy. Maremoto's work embodies the spirit of freedom and resistance and breaking barriers in human identity. And Lara Islinger is an activist, researcher, and writer committed to decriminalizing, destigmatizing, and demedicalizing abortion. Ooh, that's a banger for sentence. Her work spotlights self-managed abortion and feminist grassroots networks providing illegal abortion care. That's A, not ill. It's like we don't even believe in that system. Illegal. We don't know her. Illegal abortion care and accompaniment/doula support. Lara collaborates with organizations and collectives in Mexico and the US as they adapt to the fragmentized landscape of abortion access after the fall of Roe. She's working on several intergenerational projects with SYA aimed at, or international, sorry, international projects with SYA aimed at normalizing abortion and elevating safe paths to access regardless of legality. Lara is also the care coordinator of Abortion Freedom Fund, supporting women on web, and involved in the campaign Decriminalize Abortion in Germany, which it would be ridiculous if I tried to say those German words. How do you say them, Lara?
Thank you. I was really curious about how you would pronounce them.
There's
It's
just
called
no way. Wouldn't even, nope.
anesthesia.
No, there's no shot.
Yeah, I guess I should make my bio more readable, probably. That's was a mouthful.
It was a great
Thank
bio.
you. Thank you. Before we start, I have to tell you something. I did Abortion Academy, which I know now was about a year ago. And you also had so many nice things to say about me. I was so nervous and I just kind of sat there. And then when you were done, I go fun of me because of that. And my apparent inability as a German to process any emotions or like verbal articulation of
Oh my
emotion.
God. That's
So
hilarious.
this take the time and tell you how much I appreciate it. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys.
Oh, God, I can't even imagine. So, do I just make you super uncomfortable all the time? Because I'm always just like
Now I have a lot more
saying
practice.
things. What?
I have a lot more practice now. So
Nice. Okay, good to know. Um, so Erin has been working with Mar on various art projects that we've been, since discovering Mar's work, we've been like, how do we work with this person as much as possible? And I was kind of going to let Erin frame up this convo between Lara and Mar.
Yeah, so we are working on a project with Las Libres with Mar and Lara that's going to go on all this year, but we did kick off the project with a poster, and Lara actually found Mar on Instagram and we were like, this is our favorite artist. We really hope she says yes, and she did. And the poster is actually ready to go. And before we start, I just want to show you, and I will put it in the chat because you can download it as well. And it is in Spanish and it's in English. And it comes in American, like US sizes, and then like the metric system size for the rest of the world. So everybody can use this poster. And we have some more art projects coming up with Mar this year that I'm super excited to share in the future. But that's like where the genesis of this project happened, was kind of around this poster around self-managed abortion, what we can learn from activists in Mexico, what US activists can learn from activists in Mexico. And since Lara is involved in the US, in Germany, and in Mexico, it's like a really cool trifecta of like learning from all these three countries at once. So for this project, it's a little bit of an experiment, but I just want regular people to learn like how to be inspired, how they can become activists, like via art, like Mar, or via like writing and research, like Mara, or like Lara, sorry. Or like I'm a musician. I wouldn't consider myself like an activist, but I kind of became an activist like accidentally. So I'm hoping that we can bring more people into the movement that way. So this one's going to be centered a little bit around art since Mar is an artist. So maybe just to kick off the conversation, Mar, you can just tell us a little bit more about your background, like where you live, where you work, like how you became involved in like feminist art, and I don't know, just your general outlook on abortion and like life and what stuff is like in Mexico City. I know that's like a huge question, but maybe we can start there.
Okay, cool. Hi, everybody. I'm Mar. Well, I'm an illustrator based in Mexico City. So I live here on a gigantic and monstrous city. It's crazy. In here, it's always changing and it's always like evolving. Lara knows about it. It's this gigantic place. But I was born and raised here. And although I'm an illustrator right now, I studied textile design. And that's actually where I started getting involved in feminism because textile design is this career that has a lot of students that are women. So all my peers were women. And I remember like really clearly having a conversation with a couple of my classmates. We were in this class where we had to knit, like our grades were like how well we could knit something a garment we had to knit. So we were knitting like old ladies and we were talking about stuff. And a couple of my classmates said, I don't know, I cannot remember what were they talking about, but I remember they saying like, one of them said, I'd rather be a machista, which means like kind of misogynist in Spanish, rather than a feminist. They were talking about feminism and feminists. And I remember having like this sensation of what they were saying was wrong. And I wanted to like say something, but I really couldn't place what I could say, you know? And after that, I went to the library and I checked out all the books on feminism I could find. Stereotypically, I found like The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. I tried to read it and I was like, what the hell does this mean? Like, this is so hard. Like, I cannot understand anything. But that's like my first step towards feminism. I wanted to like learn why what they were saying like made such an impact in me. And yeah, I don't know if I answered the question. There were like a lot of questions.
I know, I realized I asked like 5 questions, but that's like a super good intro. Maybe Lara, you can tell us like something similar, like just how did you get involved in like feminism and activism, like in a nutshell?
Yeah, totally. I always feel like I received some type of basic training in feminism and anti-fascism when I moved to Hamburg, which is where I normally live when I don't sit in a Mexican basement. But abortion activism really started taking over my life when I started working with SYA. When I interned with Shout Your Abortion in the summer of 2022, which was the summer of the Dobbs decision, and living in the US as an exchange student in the year leading up to it, and it kind of made me realize that a lot of people don't understand until the very last minute that their rights get taken away. And it was really interesting for me and very inspiring to learn from your approach and figuring out how to navigate that situation in a way where you already had figured out that like the number one defense mechanism that we could implement was telling people about their options, right? So telling people that no matter where they're located in the US, they could still have a safe abortion. And that can look like traveling to a clinic in another state, or it can look like safely self-managing your abortion at home. So having this priority of really trying to educate people about their bodies was really important and really inspiring for me, because I did realize your clinics can close, clinics in your neighborhood can close down, but you cannot make us unlearn what we know about our bodies. So spreading information was like the number one priority, and it made so much sense to me. And then over that period of time, I started getting in contact with other international abortion activists that are focusing on self-managed abortion, and met Abortion Dream Team and all the wonderful activists in Poland, and then later started working with Las Libres and different types of community or mutual aid organizations that are grassroots networks providing safe self-managed abortion care, which was a huge perspective change for me coming from a European country with a very high rate of medicalization or high level of medicalization of abortion, right?
Yeah, thanks, Lara. I think that's like a super good topic to maybe jump into, because coming from the US, where abortion has also been like super medicalized, especially in like public discourse, basically, we haven't really like thought so much about like having an abortion outside the medical system. A lot of us here, I would say, until it became necessary, or it became like an easier option. People maybe would kind of think of it as like a last resort, or like, why would you want to do that when you can go to a doctor, or like having an abortion in a clinic or a hospital seemed like the best, like the gold standard, you know? And then we are kind of like learning, not everyone, I would say there's a lot of activists in the US who know this already, but a lot of people are like learning, no, actually this is something that we can have for ourselves. What is like demedicalization? So maybe the two of you can talk a little bit more about that, because it seems to me, I haven't ever visited Mexico, but the vibe is just like totally different. It's like we're taking this for ourselves and we're helping each other have abortions, and abortion is like ours. And we're like learning that in the US and hopefully like in Europe as well. So I don't know, Mara, if you can maybe talk a little bit about that, like how is abortion seen in like feminist circles or with activists, and maybe in the country at large, or just in your communities? Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would be curious if you could, Mar, talk about like what your understanding of abortion was as you were like growing up and, as a young person, like, um, what did you think like your options were in Mexico? Was there a lot of stigma? Like, what was the vibe if like you or someone around you was going to face an unwanted pregnancy? Like, is it an emergency? Is it not a big deal? Like, what do you do next?
Yeah, well, I think it depends a lot on your uh, social circle, because for me, I was raised by a couple of, my parents are both doctors. So for them, the conversation was always like really open, not only with abortion, but also with sexual literacy, like
Mm.
sexual, how is that? Like education. They were always like
Mhm.
really open and really honest with me with everything that uh, was about like the sexual relationships and how like babies are made and whatever when I was growing up. So I think that was like a privileged position of me to grow up in. But also I think it depends also in like your school. I was studying in a school that was not religious, but still I have like this really intense memory of having like a seminar of sexual like relationships when I was like a teenager. Um, and they would bring this video of like an abortion, like a baby. You probably have seen it, like a sad baby, and he will have like this high pitched voice saying like, "Oh no, mom, why are you doing this to me, mom? Like that's my little leg. Don't take my little leg," and stuff like that. Like to make kids like be really afraid of getting an abortion. But for example, for my partner Cyrus, they went to a like a really Christian school, and for them that idea was like also like they played exactly the same video. And here in Mexico, it's almost a joke. We tell like in like we will play it. I don't know how to say it, but like this this video that is like a thing that all Mexicans probably know about, like this baby crying and saying like, "Oh, my little leg." My little leg is like a joke. Sometimes we will like joke about like that audio. But I don't know, like I remember also having to help a friend of mine when I was in high school access an abortion and to like help her get to the clinic and lie to her parents and to tell them that she was with me. Like, no, yeah, that we're gonna have like I don't remember what we said, like maybe we were going to be at my house, like chilling and seeing some movies, but she was really at the clinic having an abortion. And for me, like it was more like helping my friend. At that moment, I didn't realize like if it was good or bad or if I like had any judgments against it. I was just like, I need to help my friend because she needs my help and this will affect her life. So yeah, that's a little bit of how it's here in Mexico. Sorry if the baby bit, like the video was confusing, but
No.
it's like just like this universal Mexican thing that all of them have seen this baby, and we call him like the engineer fetus because people say like we'll say people who want to access an abortion like, but what if your baby wants to be an engineer and save the world? Will you abort the baby? And we're like, so that's like the joke, like the engineer fetus and stuff like that.
I think we have the same version of the video called The Silent Scream. That was a real hit in the United States. I don't remember it doing that much talking. Like the Mexican one sounds a little bit more like he has more of a personality, maybe,
Yeah, I think that the video was like it was like dark and like black screen and you could hear his voice saying like, "Oh yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited that I will be born and I will see the world."
So
But
excited to
then
be
this
born. That's how I
person
felt, you know?
it was crazy. And then like the person had an abortion and the baby like realizes, like the fetus realizes, and he was like, "No, don't abort me." And he had like this interesting voice. And then people remixed it and there's a song and it's like just this.
Wow. Drop the
Yeah.
remix in the chat.
Yeah. It's like this thing in Mexico, like the engineer fetus. And people will do piñatas and take them to the marches.
That's
It's
very
crazy.
cool that they just decided he was going to be an engineer. He must have been really bringing it in utero for them to assign that kind of aptitude to him.
Yeah. But we still have like for some people it is a joke, but for some people it really like changed
Yeah,
how they think or feel and they got
sure.
like really brainwashed. Because in
Yeah.
Mexico we still have this opposing groups that will go outside clinics and they will bring rosaries and start praying and stuff like that. And they like use blue bandanas, like that's their color, but
Hmm.
they're like driven by Christianity or Catholicism.
But they're not, Mexico hasn't had like a huge, violent anti-choice movement like in the States, right? It's more just like praying outside. Yeah.
Yeah, praying, crying, and like some videos on the internet, stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. But yeah.
Um,
Can I chime in?
yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to comment about the like Mexican anti-abortion movement, that it is right now, I feel like it is getting stronger, US funded, and it is not as dangerous in a sense that not as many Mexicans have guns as Americans, but it does certainly exist. And it's interesting to see how the outside influence is contributing to it, as the Catholic Church has lost a lot of its credibility in Mexico because of the sexual abuse cases. And now a lot of American churches are kind of trying to fill that gap and taking over and bringing a lot of anti-abortion activism with that as well, and a lot of money for that type of activism as well. So this is something we've been noticing, or I've been noticing working with Las Libres, For those of you who don't know what Las Libres is a feminist organization based in Guanajuato, and they were founded in the year 2000, which means that at the time they had a really different reality from what Mar was having in Mexico City. Probably you were a child at the time, but still, where abortion was decriminalized until 14 weeks LMP in 2007, I think. But in a lot of other, or the vast majority of other Mexican states, it wasn't. So Las Libres work is primarily with survivors of intended femicide or supporting families that have lost victims of femicides, have lost family members because of that. And people who are experiencing domestic violence in the community here in Guanajuato. And for doing that over the past 20 plus years, they've developed this concept of accompaniment, which it really has a very extensive meaning. It's not only for abortion, but it literally means being by someone's side as they go through a process. And that can mean accompanying someone to report someone to the police, or to get their things and separate from their violent partner, in a very physical sense, accompanying someone. But they also developed a method for abortion accompaniment, which means supporting someone before, during, and after a self-managed abortion with medication. It's really important to know that misoprostol is over the counter. So the legal realities were really different, and became even more different from the US in 2021, when within weeks of SB 8 happening in Texas, the Mexican Supreme Court completely decriminalized abortion. So now the states have to kind of follow suit and decriminalize, which is now a very interesting time to be in Mexico, because there is a huge conversation within the feminist movement about whether it is actually productive or not to legalize abortion, because it always comes with regulations and it always comes with a limit, or whether it is actually preferable to just stay with the decriminalization of abortion. But what does that mean in terms of access? Can we demand the state to also provide access if abortion is considered a right, or it's totally depenalized or decriminalized, right? So for this project that we're doing with the poster that Erin showed you, I think it's time to talk about the project, right? At least I will. Our idea was really to visualize accompaniment. I mean, we kind of launched it around March 8th, so International Women's Day, and I had a really good time with Mar inside in Mexico City, putting up the poster. And around the time of the, it was really inspiring for me, and I was just like buzzing with the energy of the march in general Mexico City. But it really felt like the right time to send a message of the appreciation that we have towards the accompaniment groups in Mexico, not only who are supporting people within Mexico, but also supporting people along the migrant route through the Americas, and then also in the US. And it was really important for me that we find a cute and positive way to visualize accompaniment, because we are talking about essentially also with that anecdote that Mar just shared about what abortion is like in the visual language of our culture. And I do workshops sometimes on self-managed abortion, and I always start them by telling people, take a minute and think about what an illegal abortion looks like, and write down like what you're picturing. And then we share those like visions, and all that comes up is like back alley, dark, dirty, type of surgery, C-section type surgery, right? So this is still a way to picture abortion that is culturally very prevalent, be it in the US and Mexico and also in Europe. So what I really wanted to do with the poster is show a way of what an actual illegal abortion can look like, which is supported and safe. And I think Mar did a really great job at that. I think maybe you can talk a little bit about like how you came to visualize the poster, and maybe what you learned along the way.
Lara, I also want you to define that term illegal and just say something about why you are using it.
Mm-hmm. Well, the reason why I'm using it is because a lot of people ask me, is what XYZ accompaniment network in Mexico is doing community network in the US is doing illegal. And there is no easy answer because it really depends on the situation that the person is in. And it also depends on your own view of what legality means, right? So a lot of international organizations, a lot of networks operate in a kind of gray area where their interpretation of the law might be different to someone's very restrictive interpretation of the law. So it's just kind of like extra legal as well, a way to like get rid of this black and white thinking and just understand this is an abortion that is outside of the legal and formal medical system, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's violating the law, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so maybe I can share the slides or with the sketches for the poster. Is that okay? Okay, cool. So working with Erin and Lara was like a dream for an illustrator because they had like this like really like almost they already knew what they wanted and what they were looking for, so that's like always great. So they sent me some ideas or some examples of my previous work, and they told me like we like this vibe. I remember the illustration they liked was like this girl just like hanging in her room holding a plushie and like a lot of like different elements floating around her. So they told me like we really like this idea, you know, like this sensation that she's safe at her home. She's just like having like a normal day, you know. So we wanted to transcribe that, but like for a young woman having an abortion at home. So this was like the first sketch. You know, like it was pretty straightforward. Also, the color palette was like inspired, not necessarily like the green, like the green that we all know that has been like the color for abortion, like the fight for abortion in Latin America, but like some kind of green that goes like on that line. Pink, violet, also colors that are associated with feminist ideals. And another just like colors complementary. So this is like how the sketch looked with colors, like the rough coloring, and some like different iterations, like in Spanish and English, different sizes, different colors, and finally like the final poster, that it's the one that you can download and use and paste and hang up or whatever you want to do. This one was the one that we printed for the 8th of March here in Mexico. We pasted some of them at the streets, and yeah, we really wanted to convey like this feeling that she's like talking to someone. She's not alone. She's calm. Like she's not sad or happy. She's just like in this neutral like position. She's like accompanied by her pet. She's at her house, and yeah, that's pretty much what we wanted. I don't know if I'm missing something, but this is kind of like the general idea. And you can download this poster.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's so cool when we
Sorry.
saw the shirt, because she's wearing like the abortion access is a community responsibility, which we didn't even tell Mar to do that. That's a shirt that SYA makes, and we have a poster. You can download that poster as well. But it was such a cool like alignment, and I think it just really fits with like the vibe of the poster and what you were talking about earlier, Lara. And art is like a good way to convey what self-managed abortion, what an illegal abortion can like look like versus the idea that's in our heads. And I just think the poster like conveys that so well. Like this is what an abortion can look like. You have your kitty, you know, you're talking to somebody on the phone, you know, it's like cozy vibes. So I don't know, maybe if you can talk a little bit about that, like maybe versus like images that you've seen before, like the video before. I'm sure that's, it seems like everybody in Mexico like knows this video, but it's like, what if everybody had this opposite idea, like an abortion can actually like look like this? If you guys have any thoughts on that. I feel like the US is like starting to turn that way a little bit, but we still have like a really strong like abortion is bad, abortion is like scary. It always has to be like all the things that we've heard all of our lives. Yeah.
Yeah, also like I was thinking about this documentary. It's called Getty Abortions, and it's by this filmmaker that they Googled like abortion, women having an abortion, a woman in like in her house having an abortion, and all the images that were popping up were like sad women, like people, like women crying, like these gloomy sad images of also like that also convey that this feeling that women that have abortions, so people who have abortions, like will regret it, or they will like have this really bad time. They will be like next to a window crying or sad and depressed. uh, so this documentary goes about like how we also associate abortion like with this like feeling of regret, of sadness, of loneliness, and they also want to change that, you know, and they made like this image of them like really happy with their like abortion, and they talked about that. So I was also thinking about that, like we don't have to like keep doing this narrative that you have to be like alone and this gloomy or crying, you know, like you can be like totally neutral in your house, um, not necessarily alone having it.
Totally. It's a great documentary. It's called Getty Abortions. It's actually by a German filmmaker. And there is a corresponding Instagram account where they share, I think once a week, I'm not sure if there's like a regularity to it, but share images and visual aspects of how abortion appears in different types of series and movies. And it is what more you were saying, and it's really interesting. About the poster, obviously, I'm a big fan of Mar, so I couldn't be any happier with how it turned out. I am really excited. I'm going to put it all up over my walls also when I get back to Germany, and have so far in Mexico been spreading it everywhere. I think one thing that we probably missed, which really came to my attention when I got back to Germany and people were organizing around abortion decriminalization in Germany, was how prevalent also the coat hanger imagery is internationally, and obviously how important it is to avoid that, because I've been trying to tell this to people with every visualization of abortion, and you don't need to be an artist for this to be important for you, because you're also carrying a protest sign or something like that. With every visualization of abortion, you can choose whether to spread these harmful narratives about what an abortion outside the formal medical system looks like, or you can choose to visualize abortion pills and safe methods of abortion and essentially tell someone how they can get a safe abortion, right? Just by the visual image of being like, oh, we're associating abortion with medication, we're associating abortion with safe ways of how to do it. So that was really, it's something that is really important to me. And one thing that was really, for me, I have a lot of experience accompanying people's abortions through virtual ways, primarily through text messages and chat and stuff like that. So it was really important for me to also have an accurate visualization of how abortion pills look like, because the visualization can, as I said, either be harmful or helpful for abortion activists, right? So to have a 100% accurate way to describe that abortion pills can come in like any shape and form, and they can be in a blister, or maybe they aren't, and that it's still safe to use them. They can be generic medication, and they're just as safe as and are the exact same pills that you would get at an American or a European or whatever clinic, which it is kind of sad that we have to stress that, but this is how it works, right? And I do urge anyone to challenge, those stigmas of medicalization, but also if you are accompanying someone through an abortion, you cannot expect from them to go through this process of demedicalization of their mindset within that time frame, right? So obviously what we would like is for everyone to have access to all options and be able to decide if they want to go to a clinic or if they would rather have an abortion at home, and not be criminalized for any of those choices, right? So I think,
oh, go
yeah.
ahead, Lara.
Oh, sorry. There's just one thing that I wanted to make very clear, because I get a lot of questions about what demedicalization of abortion means. And I think it's very important to stress, and Germany is a great example of that. how the medicalization of abortion is affecting access to abortion, which is Germany is a country where abortion is technically illegal, but there are some ways around it until like 14 weeks LMP, and then some very hard to get exceptions afterwards, which makes most people just travel for abortion care if they can afford it to the Netherlands. But Germany is one of the countries, and so are many other European countries, where the law specifies that a doctor needs to perform an abortion. So even if you're within the legal limit and you do your abortion yourself, you could get criminalized for it, which there is no medical reason for these restrictions, right? But then on the other hand, this is the like institutionalized way of medicalization. There is also a way that the few doctors that are performing abortions in Germany are putting unnecessary barriers to abortions by requesting that people come in 3 or 4 times, that people take the medication at the doctor's office, come back for the misoprostol, etc., which is one way of how medicalization is harming people and stopping people from accessing abortions, or making it a really harmful and much worse experience than they could have had, being supported by someone who actually knew what they were doing and receiving that education, right? And then obviously also the stigma that comes with an abortion outside the medical system being unsafe, or being viewed as unsafe. So I think it puts us as European activists in a really tough spot, where we have very few doctors providing abortions, and we need to be very thankful that they exist. And we have numbers, which we didn't need, but we have them, that the majority of them are facing really intense harassment for what they're doing. So obviously we're supportive of them, which is kind of a similar situation that you guys have in the US as well. But at the same time, a lot of them are old. A lot of them are doing curettage abortions, which is an unsafer method of abortion, and are standing kind of in the way of safer abortions, right? So it is a very tricky situation to be in as an activist, and people are navigating it in different countries in a different way.
I have so many questions based on what you just said. First of all, why are they still doing DNC? Do you know?
Well, the few doctors that have spoken about that said that, well, you have to know that a lot of them belong to a generation that was politicized in the 70s, right? Same with the US. So same with very many countries in Europe. So that's what they learned to do, because at the time, the vacuum aspiration, or then even later abortion pills, weren't a thing. And many doctors argue that they cannot learn a new method of abortions. Sticking with what they learned years and decades ago, which to me sounds ridiculous, because I can teach someone how to have a safe medical abortion within 10 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. I'm remembering that that's the deal in Poland as well. You know, like Poland has super like extreme abortion restrictions. Abortion is essentially illegal in all cases and has been for decades. And there are not, like, vacuum aspiration machines aren't even in the country because no one has learned that method. And it's just doesn't exist, even though, like, as we all know, like, because sort of our own understanding of the difference between like a miscarriage and an abortion, and like needing to remove fetal tissue or contents of the uterus during an incomplete like childbirth. It's like we think of these as being really separate situations, and that is like a very culturally produced notion that we have, when at the end of the day, like, it's all just, it's like different based on like vibes. You know what I mean? Like it's functionally, symptomatically, physically like the same issue of, a pregnant person retaining tissue or whatever that they need to expel in order to be safe, and that there's this really safe way to do this, which is just a tiny little straw that looks like is attached to like a sucker thing that looks like a tool that is used at the dentist to me, and it's very soft and not something that would ever, for example, perforate someone's uterus potentially. It's like a very, very safe, easy method. And then there is this old school method of like opening someone's cervix and sticking this tiny little, it looks like a Coke spoon into someone's cervix and scraping out the stuff that's in there. And like one of these things is very, very safe. One is less safe and more physically disruptive, more painful, all of the things, but they are just punishing, doctors and the women that need and people who need this care by being like, no, we're not gonna learn that, updated, safer information. That would mean that we're okay with abortion. Um, the other thing that I wanted to point out, I really love what you said, Lara, about uh, that, like, just because we understand as activists that having abortions outside of the medical system is um, equally safe, that there is sort of a constellation of resources that can offer people incredible support, whether that's emotional or medical, and that, like, this does not need to be a scary experience, but that, like, we can't expect pregnant people to come to that understanding in the moment that, like, they're pregnant and needing an abortion, and like that it starts by validating their anxieties, which are the byproduct of this landslide of cultural propaganda that they've absorbed their entire lives, as well as, like in the American context, very much like the sort of cultural trauma that we've retained around back alley abortion, which I'm sure is the same in Mexico as well. And I don't know about Germany, but it's like, here, the coat hanger symbol, the idea of people dying in hotel rooms bleeding out because they had an unsafe procedure sort of lingers over everything. And all of this is why it's so why our work in changing the culture and just updating people's understandings of what this looks like now is not only like life-saving in terms of you're steering someone away from a method that could really hurt them, but you're also like preparing them for their experience in a way that I think is very much like I feel like when people have a bad abortion experience, the vast majority of the time it's because they didn't know what to expect, and or like they were experiencing a lot of internalized stigma or stigma coming at them from people, and that those two things collided in a way that made them feel really fucked up, feel totally alone, not know what was going on, and not know who to turn to for support. And so like everyone in this Zoom, like we are all holding work and trying to carry forward work that I think erases that pervasive silence and increases people's understanding and makes them be able to like walk into this experience in an empowered way. But like Lara said, it's like that doesn't just happen overnight, and you have to meet people where they are and validate what is very real apprehension and not just say, no, it's fine, or like the equivalent of that. I also just wanted to like state something that I think is pretty obvious, but and it's also like a question to both of you, but so like it's in the States, we think of having an abortion with pills. Um, if you got the pills at the clinic, that's not a self-managed abortion. You are having a safe, approved, legal abortion. But that if you get the pills through a community network or an online retailer, you don't, seek like, well, just I guess really that's it. We'll just say that. If you get the pills anywhere other than a clinic, then that's a self-managed abortion that has dubious safety and legality. But like, let's just be really clear that in either case, you're taking the misoprostol, you're having the abortion at home, and it's an identical experience. Like it doesn't, there's no functional difference in like your experience or like the care or anything if you take mifepristone in a doctor's office versus wherever else. Like this is all just like this highly medicalized patriarchal, like we've just all sort of been brainwashed to, I think, like not even think about how ridiculous that is. And it's ridiculous. And also, like, the reason that mifepristone is regulated in that way, there are many reasons. We could do a whole abortion academy about that, and that actually might be really interesting. But plot twist, it has everything to do with money and making sure that that incredible life-saving, life-improving medication stays inaccessible and is only like able to be possessed and dispensed by not only just doctors, but a small amount of doctors who are licensed abortion providers who are able to be in compliance with these incredible amount of regulations that mean it's harder for small clinics, it's harder for family practice doctors. You have to essentially be working for a large clinic, or not you have to, but this is how it was set up initially. This is why it's not more widely available within the medical system, let alone outside of the medical system, is that it was regulated to fuck so that like only like Planned Parenthood would be able to be in compliance with these regulations, because they're the only ones that have like the capacity to have every single dose of mifepristone cataloged in a certain way and locked in a safe like it's a fucking AR-15. More so. It's like more regulated than fentanyl. So all of that, sorry, rant. All of that is a question for both of you, which is it the same in Mexico and in Germany, where if you get an abortion in a pill abortion from the clinic, you have to take the Miffy in the office?
Yes, I can answer for Germany. So I totally agree with everything you said. And if you have low blood pressure, listen up, because this is going to make everyone really mad. But I think a lot about the term self-management and whether because I use it a lot. So whether it is accurate or not. And I think it is very important to understand that self-management is a spectrum, and that if you get abortion pills at a clinic by someone who has not received adequate education and has no experience with supporting someone through that experience, you get sent home without any support, which means you are self-managing your abortion effectively, versus if you get pills from a different source, be it a community network or you buy them yourself, but you have a way to be supported through the process by a doula, by an accompagnante. What is self-managed about this process? Yes, you're obtaining the pills yourselves, you're taking the pills yourselves, and almost any of these cases, no one is feeding you physically, right? So I think a lot about this term of self-management, and I think understanding it as a spectrum is much more realistic and kind of also points out the medicalized control of it, which is why should people have to drive for hours to get handed a pill that they can just as well receive through the mail system and take it home with better support than they would receive if they would have gone through, this is really testing my English, they would have gone through an actual, formal medical provider. And now the point that makes me the most angry is that we have heard in Germany stories about people who are forced to come back for taking the misoprostol and take it out the doctor's office, which in some cases, at least in one case, I've heard means that people are forced to stay either at a doctor's office bathroom while people want to go in and do their urine samples, knocking on the door, or there was one account of a doctor who forces his patients to wear adult diapers and sit in the waiting room while going through their abortions. So this obviously makes me incredibly mad and really brings to mind a concept that I've learned here while working with activists from Latin America, which is the concept of clandestinidad digna, dignified clandestine abortions, essentially, which is considering what is an abortion that is considering your dignity, and that probably does not correspond with the highest level of medicalization of abortion, right? So thank you for bringing that up. It's a really important make, for sure. But it does also speak to the abortion exceptionalism and the way that abortion is handled differently from all other medical issues that we have, right? So you talked a little bit about this, Amelia, that abortion restrictions essentially affect any person who can get pregnant, whether they think they will have an abortion in the future or not, because of how they don't really make a difference between, obviously cannot make it because that's your body, between miscarriage and abortion, right? So, Yes, to actually answer your question, in Germany, it is very difficult as a medical provider you have to be a doctor, first of all, to provide medication abortion, because other than all other medications that you can prescribe, you have to buy it and store it yourself. So
Yeah.
it kind of seems like a similar situation. And yeah, I want to circle back to one point that you made before about the reality of people who are having self-managed abortions. And I think it is very important for us activists, and also when we think about how we talk and visualize medication abortion and self-managed abortion, that we do portray it as the empowering experience that it can be for people, but in my reality, supporting people who, in effect, in a lot of cases, it is their only option and not their preferred option. This is a process that can be very traumatizing. And there are so many stereotypes, not only coming through from the medicalization of abortion, but also what we're seeing used increasingly with the US American anti-abortion rhetoric is relying on racist stereotypes of Mexico, and that all medication and all practices coming from Mexico are unsafe, which obviously is not the case. Quite the opposite is true. Sorry for the rant.
No, that was a really good rant. I don't have any words about that shit that you just shared from Germany, but it's just so, yeah, it's horrible. It's just obviously like a punishment, you know?
Yeah.
Mar, do you know what is up in Mexico with like getting pills in the clinic?
Yeah, well, in Mexico, it like abortion, like Lara told us already, it has been decriminalized, so you
Mhm.
cannot get prosecuted for getting an abortion or trying to get one in any of the states of Mexico. But it's only like legal in 18 states, so you can like go to a clinic, have an abortion easily and safely. But you can, yes, you can go to a clinic, have the pills, take them at home. There's also several different services that will mail some like the pills to you, and they will accompany you via like phone or text. And you can also get the pills yourself and look for a collective, or yeah, like some people who will do accompaniment like Lara does or Las Libres does, or like there's a lot of different accompaniment
Mhm.
collectives.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's almost how it looks here.
There's a really good question in the chat that I want to surface that is, Mar and others, can you please comment on increased awareness and organizing of Indigenous women and peoples and the impact of abortion policy and all reproductive health policy on them? I was fortunate to be in Mexico City in the lead up to International Women's Day and got to meet several people preparing for the 200,000 person strong march on March 8th, including extraordinary banners that were carried. Please comment on that.
Maybe I can start and then More you can take over. I am a German activist. I spend a lot of time in Mexico. I'm not an expert on the Mexican landscape of abortion access. I think it's really important to stress about the situation in Mexico right now, that because of the decriminalization, in theory, you should have all the options, right? Including the court has decided that that abortion needs to be accessible through the federal public health system, right? So in theory, you should be able to go to a clinic and get an abortion, and you can also buy the pills at any pharmacy, and in theory, they would have to give them to you, right? But there are two problems with it, which is a contentious objection, people denying access for different reasons, and I mean, the main problem is that people don't have access to this information because abortion was criminalized for so long, and as in the US, the situation now is kind of fragmentized. As Mara said, only 18 states have formally legalized abortions, which also means that in those 18 states, the vast majority of them have limits that are 12 weeks after conception, so 14-week LMP. What happens if you show up to a clinic with a 13-week pregnancy? They will turn you away and they will tell you, oh, it's actually illegal now and you don't have any options, which is harmful and wrong because you actually do, right? So if you don't have access to this information, that's the number one problem that Las Libres and the groups here are seeing now, that yes, in theory, people have all of the rights, but it's difficult to access them. And there's for sure a dynamic here where people who are from rural areas, people who are indigenous, do not have access, A, to medical services in their communities, and B, have it's more difficult for them to access this information, also because some of them do not speak Spanish as their first language, right? So it's also a lot different. It's a little bit more difficult, and you have to really do community-based work to be able to spread that information. And from the work that Las Libres has been doing over the past 20 years, which also includes freeing a lot of women that have been criminalized in jails, including homicide convictions for having abortions or miscarrying. Obviously, the vast majority of them are poor women from rural and indigenous backgrounds who are criminalized. So this is obviously also a dynamic that is similar in the US and all other countries as well in Central America.
I think Lara nailed it. Yeah.
This has been such a great convo.
Yeah, it's been amazing. We're like a little bit over time, but if people have like a few minutes, I would really like to, you touched on like the concept of like accompaniment, and that's something that we're definitely learning from like Latin America and starting to become more prevalent here. And I think even in the poster, I'll show it again when she's the phone is saying like, I'm here. And I feel like this is a really good way to like change all these concepts that we've been talking about this whole time. And the accompaniment process, I feel like, is going to be a really good way to like reverse some of this stigma that everybody's internalized. So if you both have time, I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about like what accompaniment means, like, and how you think this can like change abortion overall for people. Mar.
So I think maybe Lara can go because like she does this like she does this practice in her daily life. Like I'm not an accompanier, so maybe that question will be better answered by her.
Would you say that the concept of like accompaniment though is like widely known in Mexico? Because I feel like it's not so much in the US, like starting to get a little bit more, but
Well, I think it is, but maybe I don't know if I'm like in an echo chamber because like in my surroundings and the people who surround me, like a lot of them are accompaniers. That I'm sure that's not the word, but acompañantes. And there's also a lot of different collectives or colectivas, we call them here in Mexico, that they will provide this education, like you can become an acompañante. Like they have like this they're not like workshops, but you'll have to pass a series of tests, and then you can become an acompañante yourself. But I do believe it's like a wider term, like wider known term in Mexico, that you can get like accompanied like you could be accompanied by someone when you're accessing abortion. But yeah, who said yes?
Yeah, totally. There are hundreds of accompaniment networks in Mexico, and for sure not everyone knows about them, which is a problem. But I would say that the knowledge is kind of widespread, specifically in urban areas. What was I saying? Oh, I think about your question, Erin. I do think that the concept of accompaniment might not be as well known in the US because has been emerging over the past couple of years, thanks to a lot of work that has been done here in Mexico as well, but also a lot of work that has been done on the ground in the US. But the US also obviously has a history of doulas and a history of people supporting people having abortions. It's just a different terminology, and it might be a bit of a different concept. But the way to go is always the same, which is arming people in their communities to give them all the information and make it possible for them to support other members of their communities. And that's why, for me, the work with Las Libres is so inspiring, because we are seeing that their conviction is everyone who has an abortion and has been accompanied can also in turn accompany someone through an abortion, which I think is very important. Yes, there are a lot of things you can learn about accompaniment, and you will learn throughout your whole life how to better support someone through an abortion. But what we're building here is a collective effort, and it is a network of people supporting other people who can rely on other people as well, right? So I think I saw something about what a good accompaniment means. And one of the points that really stuck with me was that good accompaniment means that you're supporting someone. It's the commitment of you to support someone through this experience. But if you don't know, or if you need help supporting someone, there's this whole network and collective of people and knowledge that you can rely on, right? And this is certainly true for Mexico, a country that is so rich in knowledge about accompaniment, as it also is for the US, where these experiences have also been shared for a really long time.
Amazing. It's really inspiring to, like, even though things are so bad everywhere, thinking about like building this collective future together is amazing. Especially if you just like proliferate it by, I had an abortion, I can, or somebody accompanied me with my abortion, now I can do it. It's like there's so many of us already, you know? We're at time, so I just want to say thank you to both of you. Abortion Academy usually happens on the 4th Thursday of the month, and next month we're going to be talking to activist Dean Spade, and then we'll have another study abroad session in May where we're going to be talking with a playwright from Malta, where abortion is extremely mostly, I think, the most criminalized in all of like Europe.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be super interesting. But if you guys have time, I want to ask a non-related abortion question, which is just like, what music are you listening to right now? Or what book are you reading? What movie are you watching? So we can share that information and like not talk about like heavy topics all the time. Can be anything.
Totally. First, I knew that you were gonna ask this question, and still I didn't prepare anything. But I am always listening to a lot of German rap and a lot of feminist rap. But now my Spanish level has reached a point where I can also enjoy Mexican and Spanish feminist rap music. And maybe you saw the reel that I posted about us putting up the posters. And I've ever since then, I've been discovering a lot of super cool Mexican feminist rap music. And maybe while Mar is answering, I can share a song.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was reading La Mala Costumbre, which is like this fun book. Well, it's not fun, it's actually it's heavy and sad, but it's great. So I recommend it. De Alana Portero, La Mala Costumbre, great book. And I've been listening, like, I'm a bad Mexican feminist because I haven't been listening to feminist rap. I've been listening to Lucy Dacus, like a good lesbian that I am. So Lucy Dacus, the latest, the latest Lucy Dacus, it's not a CD, her music, her newest music. But I'm trying to think about like Mexican feminist rappers, but I cannot remember them right now. There's
No,
Ali
it doesn't,
Wawa.
you don't
That's
have to
pretty
prove
good.
your feminist credentials by your Spotify
Yeah.
playlist, you know, like music is music. But I'm gonna
Yeah,
DM both of
exactly.
you so I can share that with our audience, because I think it's just nice to like get recommendations about like music and like art and life and stuff as well.
Yeah.
So we're at time. Mar and Lara, if you want to stay on for a couple of minutes, that would be great. But everyone else, thank you so much for coming, and we hope to see you next month.